As a mother, wife, and divorce attorney for over 15 years, experience has taught me a lot about how to deal with times of uncertainty, transition, and facing opportunities for growth. I'm happy you're joining me for this part of the journey. For the past 10 and a half years, Graciela Olvera has served the citizens of Dallas County as an associate judge in the family courts. Recently, she announced her decision to run for the 303rd District Court Judge position. Today, she's here to talk with us about her passion for helping families in transition. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me here.
I would love to learn about what led you to family law. How did you become involved in family law?
Well, I was in undergrad and I was studying I was working towards a bachelor's of social work, and I ended up working with my brother. He's an attorney in Oak Cliff, and he's been an attorney for about 30 years, but I started working with him and he did a lot of family law, and eventually I ended up going to law school and I ended up in family law. That's how I ended up there.
And one of the things we were talking about earlier was the fact that you knew early on you really wanted to be in a position of helping people.
Yes.
And of course, in family law, there's lots of opportunity to help people. Tell us a little bit about that passion.
Well, I always saw myself as a social worker, maybe working at a community center or, doing disaster relief or something. I even saw myself as a CPS worker at one point. But when I went to law school, I saw the opportunity that, you can help families, you can do CPS work. And that was one of the things that I liked the most about practicing is doing CPS cases. And I started getting the appointments from the court, representing parents and representing children. And I loved it. I really did.
And you make such a difference when you're working with families who are in a stressful situation. Obviously, if CPS is involved, or also if you're going through divorce or changing a relationship. I mean, those are all really stressful times. So I think people often, when they're facing a litigation, a lawsuit, which that's what a divorce is, or a custody case, they have a lot of ideas about what happens in the courtroom. And they get those ideas oftentimes from TV dramas, right?
Yes.
What do you think is important for people to know when they are facing a lawsuit? What ways does reality differ from what we see on TV?
Well, it's not like TV where one person is going to win everything and the other one just gets, turned out or, put out without anything. It's not like that. And somebody told me a very long time ago that family law is just good people going through a very hard time in their life. And it's true. You're going through a lot of stress. You're going through a breakup. You're going through the possibility of losing your child or having much less time with your child. Your finances are getting broken up, so to speak, or divided up. And that leads some people to make some very bad decisions sometimes. And what we need to just remember is that we are all prone to that, or we can all fall in those pitfalls, so to speak, and we all make mistakes, and you got to give people some grace.
And so, of course, in the courtroom, I think one of the things people don't know and understand is how limited we are in our time. We're limited by the rules of evidence in terms of what the judge is going to hear. And often what we're doing is focusing on those few really bad decisions that somebody made, because you're right. I mean, we're humans. Like, everybody makes bad decisions from time to time. And in the courtroom, we're really going to magnify those very bad decisions.
And that's good in that when you're an attorney, you're going to bring them all out. You're going to present them to the court so that your client gets more of what they want. But I mean, the downside of that is now you've come to the court and you've basically trashed your ex. And this is a person that you're going to have to deal with. If you have a child together, you're going to have to deal with this person for some time. And if you're thinking, I don't need to talk to him past the divorce, that's unrealistic if you really want to parent together.
It is unrealistic. And not only, not for some fantasy idea that you're going to be best friends with your ex-spouse when this is over. Nobody thinks that. But although sometimes it does happen. But the reality is, for your children's sake, your ability to communicate with your ex, to be able to have discussions about things that are going on, to share information, is going to make not only your life better, but make your children's lives better.
Oh, it makes a world of difference when you can pick up the phone and call your ex and say, hey, I'm having problems with this child, come and help me. And besides that, I mean, who should you look to for help when you're having issues with your child? You can't take care of them because of one reason or another, or you just need a little bit of financial help. Who should you look to? The other parent.
But if you've gone to court and you've aired all the dirty laundry and told all the intimate secrets that were shared in the confines of your intimate relationship, it's really hard to do that. And unfortunately, we see so much damage being done to families.
Yes. And you see the endless litigation. Like we were talking earlier, there's been cases that have started when I started working there, and they are still going. I have left and they're still going, and they're probably going to keep on going for some time. You don't want to be one of those persons where you can't be in the same room as the other parent. That's just hard on your kids.
It's really hard, and it's hard on your kids, but it's also hard on you because you're carrying around all that anger and resentment and stress. So, of course, if people can't reach a resolution, having a judge to make those decisions is a form of resolution, and it does help bring some closure, hopefully, to the case. What do you love about being a judge?
I think I like working with families. I think the one thing that I like the most, and I know that they're really difficult cases were the CPS cases, but bringing in the parents and being able to talk to them and looking at them face to face and telling them, hey, I'm not your enemy. I'm here to provide some support, some help, because I know at the end of the day, if I can help the parents, or CPS can help the parents get their lives back together, so to speak, it's going to be better for the kids. And I know that I have a lot of people that are telling me, why do you give them so many chances? Why do you do this for them? They've messed up. But okay, again, I come back to the thing. We all make mistakes, and people are going through a very difficult time. And find me one parent that is not going to take it very personal when you take their children. So if they see the court as an adversary, they're going to come in, they're going to be combative, they're not going to want to work with you. It's going to be so difficult. But if they see the court as somebody supportive, somebody that's there to lend a helping hand, all of a sudden it changes. It changes. And the way that they talk to you is different. And the changes that they make sometimes in their lives are astounding. And you get to send the children home. And that is one of the best feelings when you see a parent really change their lives and get their kids back.
That's amazing. And I'm sure that those stories really resonate with you. What do you see in terms of having been an associate judge? How has that helped prepare you to be a district judge? And really, what is the difference in the roles between associate judge and district judge?
Well, the district judges are your elected officials. They run every 4 years, and if they're lucky enough to get the votes of the citizens of Dallas County, they get to serve. And the associate judges, there are 7 district judges and there are 7 associate judges. The associate judges are hired positions. But whenever a new associate comes in, it has to be a unanimous decision. All 7 district judges have to agree on you. So if the 7 are willing to hire you, you work technically for all 7 of them, but you're assigned to one particular case or court. And you hear pretty much the same kind of hearings that the district judges do. But the way that the district judge divides up their hearings and how they want to, manage their courts is going to be each individual court. They make those decisions. But mostly the associate judges are going to hear your temporary orders, your protective orders, motions, things such as that. We take care of CPS, we take care of pro se's in most courts. So those are the difference.
That's great. Now, not every county has associate judges and district judges. In fact, in the state of Texas, probably most of the counties have district judges who hear all kinds of cases. Not they hear criminal and civil. It's unique for the larger counties that we have courts that are assigned only to hear family law cases, and of course, Dallas is one of those.
Yes.
One of the things that we were talking about earlier is, in the initial stages of a divorce, parties need to get temporary orders in place oftentimes. And so a divorce can take a year or more. Sometimes, like you were saying, I guess 10 and a half years, which is a total nightmare for those families who are stuck in litigation.
Yes, yes it is.
Oh my gosh. But temporary orders are what allow initial decisions to be made early on about possession schedule with the children, child support, how the bills are going to get paid, who's going to live in the house, all of that good stuff. Most of the time, at least in my practice, we're able to reach resolution on those issues without going to court. But if we do go to court, it's a full hearing. It's witnesses and evidence. And it can take an hour. It can take all day in Dallas County.
Yeah, it can. And sometimes you're coming into temporary orders and the emotions are raw. People have just broken up. They're angry. They're very upset. That's where the bad decisions are made mostly, where one parent won't let the other one see the child, or they cut the other one off of all financials. And so the law allows you to set up some temporary orders and say, hey, you got to share the child. Both of you have a right to see the child. And you come up with a schedule for them to see the child, or to have some financial help, or who's going to be able to use the house in the meantime, things such as that. And I think that's a huge, huge difference in family law, that the law allows you to set that up. And it gives them some peace of mind and get a little bit more, I guess, into their everyday lives so that they can move on and hopefully start preparing for final trial.
Right. It gives some order, hopefully, to the new family structure, and can be very, very helpful. What tips or advice do you have if somebody's going into a temporary orders hearing, as the former judge who would preside over these temporary orders hearings? What information do you have for people who are about to go into that?
Well, what I always like to, I like to hear, and what we hear is what was going on before the divorce or before the separation. Something happened that caused these parents to finally separate, or this couple to finally separate. So we want to know a little bit about what was happening before, who was taking care of the child, who was working, who was the breadwinner, things such as that. But you got to be prepared. It's not going to be, like I said before, it's not going to be where you get everything and the other person gets nothing. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. And it's not about spending all of the money before he or she gets it. It's about trying to preserve some money. So at the end, when this divorce is final, you got something to divide.
That's great. Do you see a lot of evidence created on social media?
All the time. Do not post anything if you don't want it to come out in court, because whatever you post, I promise you, your ex is watching it. He or she is watching it, or they got friends that are watching it.
I was going to say, even though you may think that you've blocked your ex, but you forgot that mutual friend who happens to be friends with so-and-so can see everything you're posting, right?
Yes. And they pull it out and they have somebody giving them information, or if you're taking off on a trip, they know about it. So don't post anything you don't want in the public and that you don't want to come out in court, because it's going to come out. And then the other mistake that I see so much is that after their ex finds out about this, they immediately take everything down. And what you don't realize is when you're in the middle of a litigation, you can't do that.
Right.
You got to leave it there. If you put it there, it's got to stay there.
And by the way, if you've already put it up, it's probably already been preserved somewhere. So we have evidence that you've taken it down.
Yes. There are ways to find all of that.
There is. What are some of the biggest mistakes people make in court, in family court?
The social media.
Yeah.
Yes, and the text messages. I am amazed sometimes at the things that people say to each other by text message, email, just berating each other, saying some really mean things that you wouldn't say. I mean, you don't say to the person you don't like next to you, but you say
Yeah.
it to this person that you have a child with. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes in the social media. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it is, we're all humans. We know what it feels like to be defensive or to feel, like I just want to get that extra word in, or if I just, if I just say it this way, they'll finally understand. And that's all a waste of time. I mean, it really, all it does is further the conflict and the engagement with each other.
Yes, and I think a lot of people think that if I just say this to him, or, women think if I just say this to him, he's going to understand why I feel the way I do. And not usually. It doesn't happen that way. And a lot of people come into court thinking if I just tell them my story, they're going to agree with me 100%. I'm okay with you telling me your story, but more than likely, I'm not going to be 100% with you.
That's exactly right. I always say, I think there's a natural desire, an itch to litigate is what I call it. And, you just think if I go in and just scratch it and go tell my story and the judge is going to side with me and it's all going to be great. And the truth is, what happens when you scratch an itch? You end up with a big wound, right?
That's one way to look at it. Yes.
And it is hard. It's going to take time to heal from that, and and you hopefully desire healing because you want a better situation for your children.
Yeah, because once you're done with court, you got to deal with this person, like I said. And I mean, when I separated from my son's father, he was little, and I have another 10 years to go, and I have to learn how to communicate with him. And that's one of the things that I tell people, you got to learn to communicate, because otherwise you're going to have a really hard time with this person and you're not going to get rid of them. As long as your child is in your life, this person is in your life.
So what made you decide to run for district judge?
I think the helping. I really like the idea of making a difference and just working with people. I like working with the people, what they call the pro ses, the people that don't have attorneys. I mean, sometimes it can be challenging, but at other times it's really rewarding. It's really rewarding to work with CPS. It's really rewarding to help a lot of families. And I always wanted to do something in that kind of environment, that kind of work. I mean, when I was little, I always thought I was going to be like, I don't know what you would call it, but off saving the world, working with the Red Cross and going to disaster areas, but that didn't quite work out. So,
well, now you don't have to travel so much, right? As a judge.
Yeah, I don't like to fly. That's my problem.
A lot of people don't know, especially, I mean, in Texas, that even our judges are elected, our district judges, and they don't know how to pick a judge. It's not always one that's, there's a lot of publicity around. Hopefully, maybe not, because otherwise that probably means there's a lot of controversy. But what tips and advice do you have for people when they are getting ready to vote in a local election for a role that's so important like a judge?
Well, I would say reach out. If you know an attorney that practices in front of the judge, they can give you a lot of information of what kind of person the judge is, what kind of judge he or she is, and whether it's somebody that you want on the bench. I would say read the articles in Dallas Morning News. They usually do endorsements, and other organizations will do endorsements too, and they put out information about the people that are running. You want somebody that's qualified. You want somebody that is going to listen to people that come in front of them, that's going to be compassionate and wanting to help, not just somebody that's looking for a political move.
Exactly. And I think it is important along those lines, especially in a county like Dallas, where our judges we have criminal judges and family judges, that they are experienced practitioners in the field that they're going to be judging.
Yes. And I worked for 6 years as an attorney. I was on the bench 10.5 years, and now I'm back to practicing. So yes, you got to look for somebody that has experience.
In what ways, now that you're back in private practice, how have you seen your perspective change from the experience that you've had as serving as a judge for 10.5 years to the work you're doing now?
Well, when I was in private practice the first time, I went to trial. I did a lot of contested hearings. I mean, I had attorneys and other people referring me cases specifically for that reason because I was going to try it. And like I told you earlier, I think I was a little cocky and I would, approach other attorneys of this is what we want, either agree to it or let's go to trial. And that was, I hate to admit, but yeah, that was me. But now that I've been on the bench 10 and a half years and I'm back in practice, I don't see myself doing that anymore. I think I've learned a lesson from being on the bench that, if you can compromise and you can settle and people can come out of this relatively unscathed, it's better for everybody.
You can move on with your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things we were talking about is, and this as a judge, when people come in and they fight it out in court, and maybe one walks away as a winner,
Mm-hmm.
the one who didn't walk away as a winner, they're not going to let it go, right?
No,
I mean,
they're
they're gonna come back for round 2 and 3 and 4, and it can go on for years.
And yes, I've seen some divorces that while I was on the bench, literally they were in litigation for the entire time, 10 and a half years, and they're still going. I have left and they are still going. So yeah, you don't want to be one of those families. It messes with your children, it messes with your finances, it just causes problems all around. And those are the two most important areas, I think, of every person that comes to family court: their finances and their children.
That's exactly right. Those two things right there cause a lot of fear,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of worry, a lot of conflict,
A lot of stress.
and a lot of stress. And if you can find a way forward that is okay, that's acceptable, maybe not the best, outcome that you would imagine, but you can live with it. Oftentimes, that's going to be far better than what you're going to get when you go for years of fighting it out.
It's true. And somebody told me a very long time ago, and I've always, remembered it. You got to remember that in family law, these are genuinely good people that are going through a very difficult time in their life and may not be making the best of decisions. So you got to give them a little bit of grace, a little bit of understanding, and, go from there because we all make those mistakes.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, people are under a tremendous amount of stress when they're living in a broken relationship and, facing the loss and facing uncertainty. I mean, that is, I think, now we all know what uncertainty feels like.
Yes, with this COVID, I think we all know that.
Yeah, and how very stressful it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you have decided to run for the 303rd District Court judge position.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us a little bit about that decision and what you're hoping to accomplish in your role as a district judge.
Well, I really enjoyed the 10 and a half years that I was on the bench. And like I told you, I learned a lot. I think I changed, I matured a lot. But one of the things that I really enjoyed while I was on the bench is helping families that are going through, the conflict, the CPS cases. I would love being a district judge and making some change on how you approach CPS cases, how you approach cases in general. My thing with the CPS cases, I know that a lot of families, obviously, like we were talking, it's one of the most stressful things. They're children, and they feel like if you're taking they're taking, or the court is taking their children. Find me one parent that wouldn't take that, very defensive, coming at everybody. So what I like to do is when I had the CPS parents in front of me is tell them, we are not your enemies. We are here to support you. We are here to help you in whatever way that we can, because what we really want is for you to heal or get the help you need and hopefully reestablish your families. And that was one of I loved CPS cases. That's always been a passion of mine, the CPS cases. I worked on CPSs when I was in private practice. I loved doing CPS cases when I was as an associate judge, gone to the extent of becoming a foster parent because I really believe that we can make a difference. But, in cases in general, I think if we take just a different approach to all of the cases and hopefully we can find more resolutions, things that can help the family to help them heal, because the ones that are affected the most are the kids.
And, this work is so important. This is affecting not just the people who stand before you, but generations. I mean, it is, it has a lasting impact on how those children are going to grow up and how they're going to parent and the stories that they're going to share with their children, and to give a glimmer of hope to families who are in a bad situation, to help strengthen them and, hopefully reunite and, allow those children to go on is great work.
Yes, and you can make a huge difference in some of the kids' lives. I mean, I just got an email, and I'm so proud of this little girl that I worked with in a CPS case, and she got adopted out. She's always been my happy story because it was just such a difficult case, and at the end, she ended up getting adopted. And she's graduating from high school, and she reached out to me and invited me to her graduation, and I'm just so proud of her.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I think there's always hope in the midst of whatever life struggle, whatever battle you're in. There is hope. And it's just about, taking the right steps, being able to create a vision for what you want in that next stage, and then taking the steps to get there.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any other words of wisdom, maybe for somebody out there who right now is facing a legal battle and they don't quite know what to expect?
Well, I would say choose an attorney that you can talk to and that you have a good rapport with, because they can lead you and they can direct your case in the way that you want it to. If you don't want something so high conflict, the attorney can tell you what's the best way to get through all of that. And they can prepare you for the hearings and tell you what you're going to expect, because it's not going to be like you see on the TV. It's not, where one person gets completely vindicated and the other one is just left, stunned at what happened. It's going to be, I have two good people normally that are in front of me, maybe not making the best of decisions, maybe making some mistakes along the way, but it's not going to be just one person gets everything and the other one is shut out. So you really want an attorney that's going to talk to you about those things, that's going to bring you to some reality of what you to expect at the court and what's the best way to get out.
I couldn't agree more. Not all lawyers are created equally, and knowing that your lawyer is telling you the truth of the situation and helping set realistic expectations of what to expect and, what the likely outcome is. I mean, that's what trial lawyers do, is we go try cases and have a pretty good idea, although we can't always get in the mind of the judge.
No. But when you're doing it a long time, you get to know how the judges somewhat think.
Yeah.
And it's important to have somebody who has some experience, before the Dallas County courts, and you can predict some of the things, not everything, obviously, but some things you can predict. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with us today about your passion and about your hope to be able to continue to help serve the citizens of Dallas. And we'll look forward to following you and hearing more.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
If you want to learn more about Gracie Olvera, we're going to include links to her Facebook firm page as well as her campaign. Thank you for joining us.